to win their third Super Bowl in a row. And you wake up the next morning and it's like, that just didn't happen, and we lost our chance to do that. And it's not even theoretically possible for that to happen again for another 3 years. Yeah. It was like Brady put it best when he was like, when we were 18-0 in 07 and woke up the next morning and we lost the Super Bowl to the Giants. And he couldn't believe it at the time because he was for sure that they were going to win.
Has anyone ever gotten
I don't think here's the thing. I like to say yes because it's such technically nobody has won 3 Super Bowls in a row.
Okay.
However, it's a technicality because the NFL has existed for longer than the Super Bowl. And if the Super Bowl had existed 1 year before it did, started in 65 instead of 66, the Packers won the 65 championship. And the Bills were the AFL championship, and the Packers would have dominated that Bills team, just like they did in the first two. So the Packers were 3-peat champions anyways, as far as NFL champions from 65 to 67. And the Packers also 3-peated from 29 to 31. But nobody cares about that. That was almost 100 years ago.
Well, good morning. So, one of the things I had to update again, this is I think the third time, was the syllabus. Okay. There it is. Apparently, I didn't have the right student outcomes that matched what the updated version on the master list had, so I had to update that. So your student outcomes are bullet comments now instead of what they were before. So notice, if you need it, there it is. It's all just bureaucracy, but as it doesn't change the course at all, etc. And what I hope you get for your money, basically. So all the rest should be all the same, etc., etc. Notice though that this Saturday the first exam is due, and I think actually, that's not really the right. That's a great program, by the way. Fairly old already, but well, the first test is on there. You could go to it directly on the internet by just going to exams, test 1. And I suppose the only question we really haven't discussed so far is question 6, compare Socrates to Jesus. Question 5, what philosopher have we discussed that you would use as, for personal guidance? You could include Jesus, by the way, if you like. I do think of Jesus as, he might be God, but he's at least a philosopher. I mean, we're all philosophers, so he could be one. But you can also, consider Epicurus, Epictetus. We didn't really get into Marcus Aurelius a whole lot, but he's another example of a Stoic. And today our focus will be on St. Augustine, who is not only a philosopher but also a theologian. I think he's the first one that we would call that. And theology literally is the study of God. So that's the difference there. We were talking about Jesus last time, and there's kind of a dichotomy in how you approach. Yes. Oh, you're going to give us a talk about the writing thing. Please do.
All right now.
Yep.
Okay. So the Writing Center is located over there in the Learning Commons in the library. Pretty much a straight shot from here. We help students write their papers. Specifically, the Learning Commons has all sorts of different tutoring. We have math tutoring, science tutoring, music theory tutoring, language, all of that. Specifically, the Writing Center, and I might also talk very briefly about the Communications and Presentation Center. We help students with their papers. We can help students at any stage of the draft. If you're brainstorming for your answers to draft, if you're trying to organize your thoughts into like a neat sort of order, if you have a rough draft and you want us to sort of polish it, all of that. We also can help with citations, MLA, APA, or Chicago, and we have 3 different ways that you can bring a paper in. You can come in person to the Learning Commons, come sign in at the Writing Center, and a custodian will sit down with you and help you to work with your paper. That'll be about 30 minutes. Each session is about 30 minutes. And there should hardly ever be any sort of wait, and if there is, it will be pretty short. The second way is we have Zoom meetings, so you schedule those online on our website, and that's, you pick a time where you and the tutor are both available. Zoom tutoring lasts up to an hour, so some students like to do that because you can kind of get a more in-depth sort of review of your paper. But also, some students just can't come into the Writing Center for whatever reason, and it's also good for that. It might be a bit of a wait, so if you have like a paper that's due the day that you want to come in, I would come in person, because the next option also can have a wait up to 72 hours, so it's rarely more than 48, and that's, you write your essay, you download the Word doc of it, you fill out a form on our website, send it to us. We'll make comments on it and we'll send it back to you. Pretty simple. Communications and presentations coaching, I'll just talk about very briefly. They can help you with outlines for presentations and also with giving a presentation. They're very similar. You can come in person. They're right next to the Writing Center. You can come in person and give your speech to them. And they'll give you feedback. You can go on Zoom, give your speech over Zoom, and they'll give you feedback. You can email in your outline, and they'll comment on that. You can also email in videos, but that's sort of discouraged because it's very different. Just like doing a presentation for a video and doing it in front of an actual audience. So I think that is everything that I need to cover. Are there any questions?
Do you offer any interview services?
Interviewing, okay,
Like kind of like presentations, but same sort of thing?
yes, I think that the communications and presentations coaching could probably help with that. It's, cause it doesn't have to be like a school assignment that you bring in, it typically is, but, maybe also we have academic coaching, which is sort of more about like time management, dealing with technology, more than nuts and bolts of being a student. So they might be able to help with some things related to careers, since they probably do a little bit of stuff in balancing a job and school. Yeah, I don't know super specifically, but that's where I would seek that sort of tutoring, is communications and presentations coaching or academic coaching.
Thank you. It's a beautiful center over there too, by the way, if you haven't visited. So, there's 2 different aspects or approaches to studying Jesus. The one that I would like to start with is what's been referred to as the historical Jesus. And that really seems to have gotten, it seems like that would have been of interest right from the beginning, but the very beginnings of it, as far as officially that I know, is Albert Schweitzer, who, besides being an organist, he played the organ, he wanted to be a minister, was a minister actually, and wanted to go and be a minister in a French colony in Africa. World War I broke out, and since he was officially German, because he lived in at the time he lived in the Alsace-Lorraine area, where the French and the Germans have swapped ownership almost every other war and so on. He was not allowed to go to the French colony as a minister, but instead he could go as a doctor. So he studied another year. It only took a year, and he got his medical degree, and so he went as a doctor. And the neat thing about, apart from him being interested in trying to figure out, well, who was Jesus actually in a historical, modern sense, during the war, he was sitting in an enclosure inside a fenced-in area, because officially he was a prisoner of the French, because it's a French colony and he was German, so he was still doing his job and being the doctor for the village, but they put a fence around it so that he was officially a prisoner. But he was sitting at the table reading a new newspaper from Europe about the war with the chief of the village, and the chief and he were sitting there, and he read the casualty numbers, which were really huge, from one of the big battles. And the chief looked at him and said, "How can you eat that many people?" Because they were cannibals. But I mean, the idea was that if you killed an enemy, you had to honor that enemy by eating him. And if you think about it, if in all the wars, whenever they killed somebody, they had to stop and eat that person, would probably actually have been, a lot less casualties, because you really wouldn't be able to. I remember reading that and just thinking how hilarious that was. But okay. But Albert Schweitzer, kind of interesting character. In any case, when we talk about the historical Jesus, basically what scholars and the main scholars that I would talk about in that respect are referred to as the Jesus Seminar. So those folks, and I think I already mentioned last class, John Dominic Crowson. In any case, I watched several of his videos this weekend actually, and he's like 90 years old, but he's still out there writing books on Jesus and still, doing speeches and things. So that's kind of interesting. But in any case, basically, Jesus was considered to be a peasant, a Jewish peasant from Nazareth. He became a follower of John the Baptist, also known as Saint John the Baptist. And John is considered, at least from the historical Jesus perspective, he was considered to be a cynic philosopher, basically. Same kind as almost Diogenes, Socrates. So if you're comparing Jesus and Socrates, and you take that tactic, you would think, wow, he actually becomes a follower of John, and so basically his approach is considered to be very similar to John the Baptist. But the main difference between them was John believed in fasting and believed that the Messiah was coming soon, and we had to prepare for the arrival of the Messiah. But the Jewish concept of the Messiah was a man who would be a noble that would take over the power of Israel and once again free Israel from the bondage of, at the time, would have been Rome, right? So it was a physical empire, basically, that the Jewish tradition was expecting, right? John, as you probably are familiar with, was captured by Herod because he was an upstart, a protester, and was against the law, and Herod didn't like him, and as a result, you ended up with let's do this. So this is looks like a modern version of that.
Angel of the Lord, why are you here with your sword? Whom do you seek in this path?
So there's lots of different variations, I guess. But in any case, I wanted the 7 veils here. Well, I guess I skipped it, but there's so many versions of it. That's amazing. Here we go. Here's one. So, according to the story, Herod scared the heck out of Herod, and so he wouldn't kill him. He just kept him. But Herod's wife and also Salome, his wife's daughter, and she wasn't his actual. It was a stepdaughter. So they were driven crazy by John because he could be heard yelling throughout the palace, etc. And so Richard Strauss, who was kind of a follower of Freud in Vienna, wrote operas about powerful women, and one of the ones that he wrote about was Salome, who was the daughter that basically persuaded Herod to give her up to a half of his kingdom if she did a dance for him. And she did a dance for him, the 7 veils. That was, in any case, when the dance was over and he, offered her reward, she asked for the head of John on a silver platter. And so he had to do that, so John was killed. And if you ever get a chance to watch Richard Strauss's Salome, notice she's all bloody. They always have her in a white outfit, at least if they do it right, they have her in a white outfit with blood all over it. She's just been kissing the bloody head. Sorry, I just really like that. It's such a neat opera. Brilliant and crazy. It's very crazy. By the way, all of Richard Strauss's operas are about powerful women, or you might say crazy women, depending on your interpretation of them. But remember, Freud. Okay, enough of that. In any case, so once John was dead, Jesus became the leader of the group and started his official